Apparently, some of you squishies get a little, maybe not offended, but put out by my calling out the regular viewers of this channel. There's a contention that any viewer of this channel is not regular, so I'm not sure what that point is. I mean, I'm pretty sure y'all relieve yourselves on a somewhat regular basis, but that's probably not what they mean. So in light of that, I suppose I should say the consistent viewers of this channel know that my processing units have a tendency for tangents. In fact, I was just informed recently, and recently maybe at any point in time in the past, because who knows when this episode will post, that a number of you viewers only watch my live streams specifically because of the tangents I tend to go off while I'm live streaming. Because yeah, the randomest thing will scratch some weird memory bank somewhere in the back corners of the shipyard, and then suddenly we're 30 minutes in about me ranting and raving about some totally nonsensical and completely unrelated thing to the game that I was supposed to be playing. It happens a lot. But in this specific case, I think the tangent might be related. I'm lying. Honestly, really, I don't know where my processors came up with this particular thought process, but I want you to take a look at this image and then tell me what you think of it after this, well, introductory break. Any ship left on the dock for more than 24 hours will be compressed to a cube at the owner's expense. Welcome to Sacred Cow Shipyards. Alright, so clinically what we're looking at is the Stamets-class shuttlecraft from Strange New Worlds, specifically landed on Earth, I think in the Montana subprovince of the USA and superprovince, although at this point in time in Star Trek, I don't think the USA exists as you know it right now anymore, so maybe the Montana name is just kind of lingering around just because Montana is just called Montana or whatever. Regardless, anyways, yes, sorry. Stamets-class shuttlecraft landed in the snow in Montana with its port side passenger door open. And yes, it is in fact called the Stamets-class. There is some contention about how that name actually happened. Because yes, Paul Stamets is the, what's the term, astromycologist behind the spore drive nightmare that was the core conceit of Star Trek Discovery, otherwise known as STD. Yeah, what an unfortunate acronym that is. But anyways, Paul Stamets was apparently based off of a real-world Huey currently living on your planet right now as of this recording. Hopefully he doesn't die between the recording and the posting, because, I mean, that would be sad. But anyways, there is actually a Paul Stamets on your planet right now who is a mycologist, and who, well, obviously loves him some fungi because, you know, mycologist. You could, in fact, say he was a fun guy. Ha. 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 Anyways, the spore drive is just, like, recursively stupid. And personally, if I was Paul Stamets, I would be ecstatic that my name was involved in Star Trek, and then simultaneously sad that it was involved in such a stupid way. But this also raises the point of, like, how did the Stamets-class shuttlecraft get called that? Because according to Star Trek, canon, the Discovery event, the whole insanity revolving around the Discovery ship, was basically not only shoved under the carpet, but burned, deleted, and buried at the core of your planet. Starfleet basically disavows any knowledge of any ship named Discovery. The Federation doesn't even want to talk about it, and it all just kind of got deleted into the ether. So why would you name a shuttlecraft after one of the key names involved in the Discovery nonsense? No one knows. In any case, yes, this is the precursor to the Class F shuttlecraft that was on the Enterprise during the original series, of which are named, say, Einstein and Galileo, and then also Galileo 2, because apparently the original series Enterprise lost the Einstein and the first Galileo, and actually the second Galileo, and then apparently Galileo 2 actually manages to stay around. Details. Regardless, I chose this image with malice aforethought, as I do with basically everything I do. Because, yeah, looking at this image, it looks like a shuttlecraft. I mean, come on, really. It really kind of encompasses the kind of angular aspect of the original Galileo shuttlecraft from the original series. I totally get it. And beyond that, I have some qualms about the design, not least of all of which are the trip hazards of having the Hume walk across a boarding ramp and then walk down the not quite ladder that is somehow built into the warp nacelle of the shuttlecraft. Like, why would you be having the Hume walk on the warp nacelle? Of all the things that I would want Humes to walk on, I think that's pretty much the last one. I mean, in comparison to the overall mass and rigidity and structure of the warp nacelle, the Hume weighs basically nothing. But still, you don't want some dork just randomly kicking your warp nacelle right behind the buzzard ram scoop just because he has to walk up those stupid little steps to get into his ship, right? Okay, sorry. Again, getting distracted. I am losing the track of my original point. Again, not surprising. My original point, which I don't think I've expressed yet, is yes, this is a shuttlecraft. This is a vehicle meant to ferry personnel and freight from point A to point B when transporters won't necessarily cut it. Fine. All makes perfect sense. I mean, even in days of instantaneous transport over long distances, you occasionally need to go longer distances with not necessarily a full-up starship, or you need to transport material that is not necessarily lending itself very well to, say, transporters. All makes perfect sense. But let's loop back to that malice aforethought problem. Look at the door. Just the door. Because yes, actually, this entire episode is just about the door. Tell me what you see. Because I see something that I don't know if the prop designers or set designers or whoever was in charge of this particular design may or may not have meant. Because yeah, obviously there's the personnel side of the door. Sure, that makes perfect sense. Somebody has to be able to walk in and out. It's a fairly decently wide door for the person. Yes, you can see him standing there in the door and there's clearly space around him and he can get out fairly easily. But then there's that weird window segment, isn't there? I mean, yes, that is a very large window, and everybody likes windows in their aircraft, certainly, and spacecraft too as well. But still, interesting to have it open, right? I mean, arguably, if this thing was a cargo hauler, for example, the lower section of the door would be wider than the higher section of the door, right? Because even with, say, like, anti-gravity freaking pallets or whatever the hell, you'd still want them to be as low as possible, so you could just like open the lower section of the door, slide in this pallet into the shuttlecraft, and then close the door and be done with everything. Whereas with this particular design, you have to open the door, raise the hover pallet very, very high, slot it into the ship, and then drop it down onto the deck. That requires excess energy, increased hazard for squishing toes, and so many other details as well. Notably, that extension off the personnel door isn't even level. So really, if this was a cargo-related thing, you would think that that line of the window section of the door would be flat so that the pallet could just like slide right in and call it done. Well, and hear me out here, I'm pretty sure that window opening for the shuttlecraft has absolutely nothing to do with cargo, which raises a question of why are you just randomly opening this massive chunk of the shuttlecraft hull just to let people go in and out of what is otherwise a somewhat reasonably sized people door? Well, as you might expect, I have an answer, or at least a supposition. I don't actually know what was going through the designers' minds when they created the Stamets-class shuttlecraft, but I can tell you what the design tells me. And this requires a little chronology breakdown because actually, it's kind of relevant. We're going to ignore the whole eugenics war and, in fact, the Enterprise series because all of those details are relevant if you care about Star Trek's timeline in general, but in this specific case, they aren't actually rather significant. The significant detail, however, is that the Constitution-class USS Enterprise, the NCC 1701, no bloody A, B, C, or D, was initially launched in approximately 2245, according to your current calendar. And that initial 5-year mission lasted until 2250. And then she came back and got refitted. And then the original series episode, The Cage, took place in approximately 2254. And then things get kind of weird. Because, thanks to STD, otherwise known as Star Trek Discovery, we now know that the Klingon Federation War took place between 2256 and 2257. And then Star Trek Strange New World Season 1, which, yes, this image comes from, takes place in approximately 2259. So 2 years after one of the most bloody wars that up until this point the Federation has ever known. I mean, yes, World War III was technically bloodier than that, but the Federation came after that. I'm pretty sure that the Klingon Federation War was basically the first big war that the Federation itself was actually involved in. And I somehow know that I have some Helo crew out there somewhere understanding what I'm about to say before I'm about to say it. 'Cause, yeah, the Stamets-type shuttle, and specifically its door, is a product of the Klingon Federation War. Why, you ask? Well, I mean, like I said, there's no real reason for the top half of the door to be that wide. Aside from the fact that the lower half of the not door section that isn't involved in the door, that is to say the area to the Hume's left as he's coming down the steps, is remarkable cover, isn't it? And it's not even concealment. I know that you Humies make a distinction between concealment and cover, and that is wise. Concealment hides you. Cover prevents you from getting shot. But in that regard, yes, the portion of the not door to the left of the Hume's as he's coming down the stairs is both concealment and cover, predominantly because the weapons that could be wielded against this shuttlecraft as it lands and opens its door and disgorges its occupants are not designed to actually penetrate a starship or a shuttlecraft's hull. We're talking about man-portable phasers here at this point, disruptors, stuff like that. Things that if they hit that lower segment of the not door wouldn't actually penetrate. But a Hume or a not Hume, a squishy hiding behind that lower segment of the not door could pop up, take a few shots, and then again take cover behind actual cover, actual hull of the shuttlecraft itself. So yes, I'm not even joking here. What I'm seeing, I don't know about y'all, but what I'm seeing is the product of a 2-year-long bloody war with a species known for their martial prowess, specifically in hand-to-hand combat. And this is the end result, is that even their standard shuttles are designed that when you pop open that door, someone is capable of taking cover behind the opening and shooting out of that opening simultaneously while the rest of the crew pops on out, tries to take whatever cover they can, and takes the fight to the enemy. Because realistically, I can't see any other functional reason for that door to be shaped the way it is. I mean, honestly, for transport craft like this, the whole goal is to offload and onload as fast as possible. And so if you wanted to make that happen with this particular design, you would have that entire segment of the shuttlecraft open all at once. You could dump out cargo pallets and people and whatever the hell else, and then load on whatever you need and leave. But no, they left this little, crenellation, kind of like castles on your planet, for someone to hide behind. This is fundamentally indicative of a deep-seated, for lack of a better word, psychosis born out of having gone through an absolutely horrific war, come out on top, and still had some worries all the same. Which naturally loops us back to the notion that, of course, the Federation maintains that the Starfleet is not a military organization, despite all the facts that the average Starfleet ship can simply just glass an entire planet and not even notice that they expended the ordnance. Because, yeah, Starfleet is totally a military organization. They have military ranks, they have court-martials, they have all the other accessories and trappings of a military organization. It's just that they don't want to scare off the fuzzy wuzzies. But anyways, getting distracted again. I don't know for certain that this particular door design was deliberate. I mean, I know it was deliberate. Someone somewhere designed this door to look this way. Fine. I acknowledge that. But what I'm reading into the door, I don't know if that's deliberate. I think it makes a lot of sense in the context of Strange New Worlds. What with just having rolled off the fight with the Klingons and still being a little twitchy about the edges. And yes, technically we're not a warfighting organization, but maybe we shouldn't just let people charge down the ramps into oblivion without affording someone the opportunity to perhaps, cover them. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It probably is just me. But when I was rewatching the various seasons, the 2 seasons, I guess now, of Strange New Worlds in preparation for the 3rd season coming out, or having come out soon, or already having come out, again, depending when this episode gets aired, it just suddenly stuck out to me how this door was designed and perhaps why. And maybe you're reading something else into it that I'm not seeing myself. And if so, feel free to speak up in comments. I mean, like I said, I'm seeing what I see for a lot of reasons, but maybe you see something different in this particular design. And as always, your input, I wouldn't say it's valued around here, but it's always interesting one way or the other. Am I right?
And that's all from Sacred Cow Shipyards. Please be advised that any ship left on the docks for more than 24 hours will be compressed into a cube at the owner's expense. Have a nice day.